what has been your experience with Danish startups and how they view nearshoring in particular?
Yeah, and I think for nearshoring, they tend to not consider it or consider it late. That tends to be the in my observation. And I think a lot of that has to do with, I think it's there's two sides to it.
Okay.
One side is here, there are a few industries that are particularly strong, or they're kind of growing faster. Fintech, some kind of biotech and medical industries, those kinds of things. And their oversight of the product can be part of it, and regulation, that sort of thing. But that's not at all the only industries here. There are plenty of other types of startups here. And I think they don't start thinking about that until much later. So early on, you tend to hear, we need a technical founder. Like, we need somebody who knows how to do X, who knows how to do Y. The interesting thing is I'm starting to see people just reaching out to Danish Startup Group, way more organizations saying, hey, we are a technical organization. We build stuff. We do equity share models. We or different types of models, you know. We are a team that will just do the building, and you do the kind of product idea and the market understanding and market fit and market analysis, and you know where you want to go with it, and let's pair up in some way. And I think this model is relatively new. I don't think specifically in places like Denmark, it's really one that is embraced, because early on in the ecosystem, it's really, you tend to rely heavily on who do you know and who have you met and who have you shook hands with. And, you know, we're kind of getting into this thing that's a little bit like a marriage, you know, where we're like bound by contract. And if this works out at all, you know, like
hopefully till death do us part, right? That's kind of what you hope for. Do you think, or do you see, has there been any drastic shifts in the way startups are thinking because of COVID? Or is it really just a matter of, well, let's just ride this out and then we'll get back into, you know, what we usually do?
I don't think that, I think a lot of startups are feeling a lot of pressure that they cannot just ride it out. They need to do something. They need to do something. Whether that is, and especially if you are a market facing or retail, you know, product, your consumer facing product or service, that's with the exception of the services that have seen a boost, like those kind of home delivery type services. They have been able to leverage the situation because they're providing services that are now more valuable. But I think for a lot, they're really looking for, where is my revenue going to come from tomorrow? Because we are really dependent on this. We really need this. And that's been a combination of cutting costs and also trying to figure out, are there kind of markets? So, for example, I know one founding team, they were making a medical product, and interest in that, clients sort of dried up interest in that. And they started figuring out, like, what are we going to do if we still, they're still not profitable. So they're still kind of burning venture capital. And if they had to think about, okay, how are we going to keep ourselves interesting to venture capitalists and ensure that we have a future? And so they switched to a COVID product, and they could luckily do that. They had some success with that, kept some interest going, closed a funding round, and were able to use that to sort of keep their lifeline going. But I think that's really tough. And I don't know how many we're going to lose as a result of this, not being able to adapt quickly enough to what's going on here.
Have you seen any startups who have just basically said, you know what, enough's enough, no mas, we just won't survive this? Or do you find it a bit more on the opposite, as in, no, we're going to get through this, we just have to figure out how?
I think the overall attitude has been pretty gritty, you know, like, what do we do? Let's buckle down. Let's try and solve this problem. And I think that's great, because, you know, they need to band together. And it's nice. You're starting to see more events where it's about like, what's your experience? What are you doing as a result of COVID? What is, what's your strategy here? You know, is there something that we can share? Is there something I can learn from you? And I think that's really important. in this time, because you got to rally your spirits. You need to spend that extra time really brainstorming and thinking about what are our options? What options do we have? And sometimes maybe it is a reasonable idea to close down the startup. There always is a situation where that's a possibility, and that may be like the obvious idea. But I actually think one of the painful things is that it's not discussed very well. Failures are still, everybody kind of talks about it, but still we should be having a kind of clear understanding of situations where startups did shut down, and maybe that made sense, maybe it didn't, but understanding that, as well as situations where startups really succeeded, because we all hear about situations where startups succeed, but there are many more that shut down, like for every one that succeeds. There's just a huge number of startups that shut down. And understanding that is a big factor in your success in the future.